Hello, I'm Ling Hung from Hanoi, and this is the live edition of VTV News. Let's now get you caught up with our headlines. The 9th plenum of the Party Central Committee closed on Wednesday. Chinese ships continue ramming Vietnamese vessels. And Vietnamese Culture Day held in Vladimir, Russia. And first up, the 9th plenum of the Party Central Committee closed on Wednesday. In his closing speech, Party General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng revealed the outcome of the week-long meeting. Delegates agreed to issue a new resolution on building and developing Vietnamese culture to meet the country's requirement for sustainable development. They said that it is necessary to inherit, supplement, and develop the party's viewpoints on cultural development as stated in the resolution of the 5th Party Plenum. The delegates agreed on measures to complete documents to be submitted to the 12th National Party Congress. Party leader Cham agreed with the draft political report and the draft report on the 5-year socio-economic development plan from 2016 until 2020. Next is the latest updates from Vietnamese Coast Guard under the Ministry of National Defense. By 2:50 p.m. on Wednesday, Chinese military ships presenting at the area comprise of several warships, including 2 rocket escort ships, 2 transport ships number 998 and 999, 1 rocket platform and 8 anti-aircraft rocket pods, 1 76mm cannon, 2 artillery stands with 4 artillery cannons. The forces guarding the Haiyang Shiyou 981 remain the same as on Tuesday, while the number of Chinese steel hull fishing ships has increased from 15 to 50 ships. While mobilizing ships to approach the west and northwest of the oil rig to state Vietnam's sovereignty and command the Haiyang Shiyou 981 oil rig and Chinese ships to vacate Vietnamese seas, the Vietnamese Coast Guard and fishery control ships were followed closely, blocked, and actively rammed into by Chinese ships. 4 Chinese Coast Guard ships numbered 45014, 3411, 46102, and 2112 came within 100 meters of the Vietnamese ship CSB 8003. Meanwhile, the Chinese vessel 46102 attempted to ram into the starboard side of the Vietnamese ship CSB 2016. However, the captain of CBS 2016 reversed the engine, and the Chinese ship missed the Vietnamese ship's bow by a mere 5 meters. And on the same day, according to information from Vietnamese Fishery Control under the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, China has mobilized 4 military ships and 2 fighter airplanes to the oil rig's location and used these ships to ram and fire water cannon at Vietnamese fishery control ships in the area. In addition, the Chinese Coast Guard ship numbered 46014 threw hard objects at the Vietnamese fishery control ship KN 764. The Chinese steel hull fishing ship numbered 98008 rammed into the Vietnamese fishery control ships KN 761 and KN 765. Despite this, Vietnamese fishery control ships have persevered in approaching and using a PA system to order the Chinese to remove their unlawful oil rig from Vietnam's sovereign waters. They have also continued to ensure the safety of the fishermen working in areas around the oil rig. VTV reporters have gone to the waters surrounding Paracel Islands near where the oil rig Haiyang Shiyou 981 has been unlawfully installed by China in Vietnam's exclusive economic zone. VTV reporter Van Dong provided us with more details through a phone call. Let's now take a listen.
We are currently on the Coast Guard ship 4032, which belongs to the Zone 2 Coast Guard of the Vietnamese Coast Guard Command. Today, more Vietnamese ships have been blocked from performing their law enforcement duties on Vietnamese sovereign waters, where China's have unlawfully installed the Hải Dương 981 oil rig. At 8:15 a.m., the Chinese ship number 31101 spotted a Vietnamese ship, approached it and monitored its movement. At 8:50, a Chinese plane of unknown number flew over Vietnamese Coast Guard ship 4032 and other Vietnamese ships carrying out their responsibilities in the area. In the afternoon at 15:30 hours, Vietnamese ships joined a formation and broadcasted messages of Vietnam's sovereignty. At 16:15 hours, after spotting Vietnamese ships, Chinese ships surrounded them in a fan formation. We noted their numbers are 441, 4401, 3411, and 46001. Afterwards, the ship 46001 came within 200 meters of the Vietnamese ship's 4032. This is the very ship that rammed into the port side of Vietnamese ship 4032, damaging its port side balcony and other equipment on board. The chase ran on for 10 nautical miles before it ended.
VTV reporters have been close to the water surrounding Paracel Island since Tuesday and witnessed several Chinese ships threaten and block the law-enforcing activities of Vietnamese Coast Guard on Vietnam's sovereign waters. However, Vietnamese Coast Guard has kept close watch on activities in the East Sea.
Right behind us is the China Coast Guard 3411, which is protecting China's unlawful installation of the oil-rich Hải Dương 981 in Vietnam's exclusive economic zone. Despite the Vietnamese Coast Guard vessels 8003 using a loud PA system to inform them of their violations since morning, the Chinese ship has persisted in blocking and scaring away the Vietnamese craft, which is doing its duty on Vietnam's continental shelf and exclusive economic zone.
Đây là vùng biển thuộc vùng đặc quyền kinh tế và thềm lục địa của Việt Nam theo luật biển Việt Nam và Công ước Liên Hợp Quốc về luật biển năm 1982. Mọi hoạt động của các vị tại khu vực biển này là trái phép, xâm phạm nghiêm trọng quyền chủ quyền và quyền tài phán của Việt Nam, vi phạm luật pháp quốc tế, nhất là Công ước Liên Hợp Quốc về luật biển năm 1982, đi ngược lại tinh thần tuyên bố ứng xử của các bên ở Biển Đông, yêu cầu các vị chấm dứt ngay mọi hành động và rời khỏi vùng biển Việt Nam.
VTV reporters have been here since Tuesday and have witnessed several Chinese ships threaten and block the law-enforcing activities of the Vietnamese Coast Guard on Vietnam's sovereign waters. On Wednesday morning at 7 a.m., Vietnamese Coast Guard vessel 8003 spotted a Chinese military ship in the vicinity of the oil-rich installation. As it approached the ship, the Vietnamese Coast Guard vessels were chased and Chinese ship came alongside them and blocked their path. Faced with threats, the Vietnamese captain shrewdly steered their craft away and narrowly avoided collision. At 8:50 a.m., at 7 nautical miles or 13 kilometers from the location of the unlawful oil-rich installation, Vietnam spotted a Chinese Scott airplane flying above the Coast Guard ship 8003. In light of this, the Vietnamese Coast Guards organized a meeting to assess the situation and prepare avoidance countermeasures aimed at maintaining regional peace and security.
Máy bay hôm nay là máy bay cánh bằng. Hôm trước đã có xuất hiện ở trên không phận tàu 803 là 3
The
ngày.
plane that appeared this morning is a straight-wing one that flew over the ship 8003 3 days ago. This plane is number 8321, and it usually hovers above the Coast Guard's airspace with a low altitude of 350 meters and a high of 800 meters. Each time it circles 2 to 3 times.
Xuất hiện như thế thường lượn 2 đến 3 vòng. Sau đó là ra khỏi tầm quan sát của chúng tôi.
Meanwhile, on Wednesday afternoon at 2:35 p.m., the Vietnamese Coast Guard spotted 4 Chinese military ships. Two of them, number 998 and 999, were sailing 2.5 and 2.2 nautical miles from Vietnam's ship 8003. The other two vessels were rocket escort ships sailing 4.6 and 4.5 nautical miles from ship 8003. According to Vietnamese Coast Guard, on Tuesday and Wednesday, Chinese patrol ships began blocking Vietnamese ships from the outer ring instead of waiting for Vietnamese ships to approach near the unlawful Irish installation as they had previously done. When Vietnamese ships approached, several Chinese boats blocked the bow, stern, starboard and port side of Vietnamese ships. At present, Vietnamese fishermen's activity in Vietnam's water around the Paracel Islands are continuing as usual, thanks to the assistance and safeguarding of the Vietnamese Coast Guard and fishery control ships.
The Vietnam Association of Seafood Exporters and Producers, or VASEP, recently called for all seafood enterprises, organizations, individuals and patriotic overseas Vietnamese to contribute to the program called Unity to Protect National Waters in the EC. Yesterday, VASEP donated 2 billion Vietnamese dong or $100 million to the Vietnam Coast Guard and Fishery Surveillance Force, who are protecting national waters in the EC. The program, which will continue until May 31st, is one of many organized by Vietnamese companies to oppose China's illegal placement of the Hải Dương 981 oil rig in Vietnam's exclusive economic zone and continental shelf. Nearly 1,000 Vietnamese in Laos' capital Vientiane joined a protest on Wednesday opposing China's illegal placing of oil rig Hải Dương 981 in Vietnam's exclusive economic zone and continental shelf. At the meeting, Vietnamese Ambassador Nguyễn Mạnh Hùng said that China's deployment of the rig and armed vessels in Vietnamese waters was a dangerous move which breached Vietnam's maritime sovereignty and ran counter to agreements between the two countries on settling maritime issues peacefully in line with international law. Representatives of Phật Tích Pagoda, the Vietnamese People's Association in Vientiane, the Vietnam Business Association and the Vietnamese Students Association in Laos expressed their deep concern over the EC situation and China's actions. They hoped that the Vietnamese party and state would take resolute measures to defend national sovereignty. The Royal Library of Belgium currently holds the original copy of Atlas Universal by Philippe van der Meulen, published in 1925. An internationally recognized document, the Atlas proves Vietnam's sovereignty over the Paracel Islands. More in the following.
The Royal Library of Belgium holds some of Belgium's most important documents, including 4 sets of Atlas Universal. In its 400 pages, Atlas Universal was the first atlas to show the entire landmass of the world on an uniform scale. Known for its scope and accuracy of details, it is hailed as one of Belgium's most valued documents.
This is the first atlas in the world printed by lithography, a process which allowed them to make 1,000 copies of the 400-page atlas in just 3 years. The atlas was sold mainly in Europe to universities, royal libraries, and monasteries. Some copies were even sent as far as Cuba and Guatemala.
Margaret Sylvester has worked at the Royal Library of Belgium for 23 years and is the author of many research projects commissioned by the Royal Library. Her latest project was a 681-page research paper that goes into details about Atlas Universal.
Asia, including Vietnam, is portrayed in these 4 pages, including a small description of the Kingdom of An Nam. In this map, the author drew Paracel Islands. He made side notes about the geographical features of the islands, like the rifts and sandbanks. Even at that time, they were able to measure the locations of the islands quite accurately.
Map number 98 in the atlas goes into details about Tonkin Gulf. This map indicated China's territory as reaching only as far south as Hainan Island and not crossing over the 18 parallel north. The atlas proves Vietnam's sovereignty over the Paracel Islands. This information is in accord with Chinese maps produced prior to the start of the 20th century, as well as other Western maps.
More to come on VTV News. A collection of documents from the Nguyen Dynasty officially recognized as a heritage artifact by UNESCO's Memory of the World Committee for Asia Pacific. And let's go to Russia's Vladimir City to take a glimpse of Vietnam Culture's Day.
Exotic Vietnam is an intriguing blend of many charms. This land is where all manner of stunning landscapes await like a visual feast, rivaled only by the beauty of its people and their abundantly rich tradition and culture. Here is where you can relive the past in richest color or live it up in the bright lights of the big city. With so much more to offer, Vietnam is simply unforgettable.
Welcome back to VTV News live from Hanoi. The Prime Minister has signed a decision to establish the Price Management Steering Committee headed by Deputy Prime Minister Vũ Văn Ninh. The steering committee will help the Prime Minister to develop guidelines and make decisions regarding price management while giving directions to municipal and provincial agencies to solve problems related to prices of essential goods in order to control inflation and stabilize the macroeconomy. According to many online newspapers, hundreds of Vietnamese websites have been hacked by a Chinese hacking team called Team 1937cn.net. Let's now take a look at the following report to find out whether this allegation is true and how it affects online security in Vietnam.
The Vietnam Computer Emergency Response Team reports that 139 Vietnamese websites have been hacked from May the 11th to the 13th. It means that on average 30 websites are hacked every day, an increase of 20% compared to normal. All the websites that were hacked belong to small enterprises that are vulnerable to hackers.
Recent attacks against Vietnamese websites use distributed denial of service or DDoS and attacking servers to obtain passwords or change the interfaces of websites. The latter has happened a lot, and hackers deliberately left traces to show their identity. Hackers have scanned for security holes to hack into websites. This hacking method is not very advanced, and recorded attacks in recent days show that they are not professional hackers.
The large number of sites hacked in recent days are also due to many of them running off the same server. And when the server is compromised, all of its websites are also attacked.
Government and bank websites in Vietnam have pretty good security, so it's not easy for hackers to attack these websites. We have urged government agencies and businesses to check their systems and will support them with the necessary measures to maintain their website security.
Experts believe 40% of Vietnamese websites have security holes that are vulnerable to online attack. So IT staff are also being urged to check on all their systems and monitor the situation while preparing information on security firms to contact for help if necessary.
A collection of documents from the Nguyen Dynasty was officially recognized as a heritage artifact by UNESCO's Memory of the World Committee for Asia Pacific. The announcement was made on Wednesday at the ongoing second session of the 6th General Meeting of the Memory of the World Committee for Asia Pacific in Guangzhou, China. With notable value in content, appearance, and style, the Nguyen Dynasty document was unanimously upheld by the judges. Following this recognition, this historic value of Nguyen Dynasty's document will get to many more people. Well-known master artisan of embroidery Lê Văn Kinh from Huế City has finished a work of art dedicated to late President Ho Chi Minh on the occasion of the leader's 124th birthday. Once again, this work of art has gained recognition from the Record Organization of Vietnam. Let's now see how special it is.
Master artisan Lê Văn Kinh has nurtured the idea of creating a piece dedicated to President Ho Chi Minh for a long time.
His embroidery work this time is special because the artisan has used silk thread to embroider 2 poems from the prison diary, a famous work by President Ho Chi Minh. The 2 poems are embroidered in 2 languages, Vietnamese and Chinese.
I want to express my deep respect for President Ho Chi Minh in my embroidery work. It's indeed the desire of my life.
Master artisan Le Van King is famous for landscape embroidery work, but this was a really different experience and challenge for him because he has to embroider both Vietnamese and Chinese scripts. To perfect his work, King used silk thread and canvas of the best quality and put the utmost care into every little stitch.
I want to add spiritual value to my work, so I've carefully selected special materials. I've traveled to different places to find suitable fabric, and the silk thread was manually colored by artisans in Hanoi.
Now, at the age of over 80 years old, embroidery works dedicated to President Ho Chi Minh are the most valuable treasures to this master artisan. He says that if his health remains, he might create more works to further express his respect to the national leader.
The Vietnamese Embassy in Russia, in coordination with the Overseas Vietnamese Association, held the Vietnam Culture Day in Russia's Vladimir City on Monday. The event included many overseas Vietnamese as well as Russian supporters from all over the city.
The event started with an exciting lion dance and a Vietnamese traditional costume show, which was performed by hundreds of Vietnamese workers from garment factories all over the city. Many city locals were also keen to participate in the event and get a better understanding of Vietnamese culture.
We Vietnamese have been living in this city for a long time, but this is the first time we've held Vietnamese Culture Day here. Our aim is to introduce our Russian friends to the many great aspects of Vietnamese culture, including its history, arts, and cuisine.
Vietnamese Culture Day also featured art performances from the Vietnamese People's Police Art Collective, as well as the work of many Russian artists in Vladimir City. These art performances help develop the understanding between the local Russian population and the Vietnamese community in Vladimir.
I'm very enthusiastic about this collation of Vietnamese and Russian artists. This kind of activity will bolster the relationship that has been long built between the two countries. I especially like Vietnamese dance, which I find so diverse and elegant. You cannot underestimate its beauty.
What a great show! I've already made plans to visit Vietnam.
The Vietnamese Culture Day in Vladimir was also a good chance for overseas Vietnamese to express their love for their homeland.
I feel very proud to be Vietnamese and participate in this kind of culture today. This event will boost the friendship between Vietnam and Russia.
As part of the event, a petition was signed by hundreds of overseas Vietnamese and Russian friends supporting Vietnam's measures to solve disputes in the East Sea after China's illegal installation of oil rig Hai Shio 981 in Vietnam's waters.
VTV News will now continue with several online news about Vietnam.
Deutsche News.vn has the first story. It quoted the American Chamber of Commerce in Vietnam saying that Vietnam will surpass all other ASEAN nations to become the largest exporter to the U.S. next year. Vietnam currently stands behind Malaysia and Thailand in terms of export turnover to the U.S., the AmCham said in a report released last weekend. Vietnam will take over the top positions in 2015, the report stated. In 2014, the bilateral trade between Southeast Asian country and the U.S. is forecast to top $33.6 billion, with Vietnam's shipments totaling $28.1 billion. Moving on to other news by Varieties.com, it reported that Berlin-based A Company Film Licensing has struck a deal with Vietnamese phone provider Viettel to distribute films and TV series on all of Viettel's digital platforms. A Company is a content provider with a library of some 750 theatrical, home entertainments and televisions and video on demand titles to which it has rights in parts of East Europe and Russia. Titles covered by the Viettel deal includes Cloud Atlas and I, Frankenstein, as well as library content Underworld and Bulletproof Monk from the firm's lecture catalog. Vinamilk wants to use its investment in California's Driftwood Dairy to bring American products back to Vietnam and to sell its own products in the United States, the company has told JustFood.com. Late last year, Vinamilk, Vietnam's largest dairy processors, finalized a move to buy 70% in Driftwood. The acquisition is among a series of international investments as the company looks to take its turnover from last year's $1.5 billion to $3 billion by 2017. In recent months, Vinamilk has set up a venture in Cambodia and outlined plans for an office in Poland.
FreshPlaza.com has the first figure. The Dinh Meat Cooperative in Chà Vinh Province has just exported a ton of red pitahaya or dragon fruit to the U.S. for 24,000 dong per kilo, or 0.82 euro. According to VietS, Agricultural Produce Company Director Vũ Công Bằng, the company has received an order for 2 more tons of dragon fruit for the U.S. in May, as it is a very popular fruit on the American market. Chà Vinh Province currently has 65 hectares of land for dragon fruit production. According to Oriya.com, citing local sources, the Vietnam government is planning to shift a total of 112,000 hectares of rice area in Mekong River Delta to other crops such as corn, wheat, and soybean by 2015 in order to reduce import costs on those commodities. The government is supportive of the move as the country has been importing huge quantities of corn, wheat, and soybeans yearly despite having favorable growing conditions in the Delta. According to a report released in the beginning of this year, Vietnam imported more than $4 billion worth of corn, wheat, and soybean in 2013.
And before we say goodbye, let's take a look at the updated weather forecast. And that's the end of our news bulletin at this hour. Thank you very much for watching. You can go to vietcv4.vn for other updates. And for now, goodbye from Hanoi.